Hi guys, I'm Ross Rooney. I'm the coach of ENDPOINT'S CSGO team. I work with the team on a day-to-day basis, trying to improve them strategically, improve them as individuals, and improve them, in any way that I can. Yeah, it's been a good experience since I joined across the board. Really, we've had very few down moments. It's been kind of just not a meteoric rise, but a kind of incremental improvement over time. So, you know, I've I'm kind of somewhat blessed to be given the opportunity to work with such a great group of players. It's a bit of a cliche the coaches always say, but the guys are fantastic to work with. They're a pleasure every day coming on to TeamSpeak is a joy. So I'm very fortunate. We've obviously had some ups and downs. It's been for the most case it's been up, but yeah, Dreamhack Anaheim, fantastic experience. We went in as I would say as the expectancy was for us to simply just finish last and kind of go out and, as all UK teams historically have, just go out without any sort of fervor. But we were fortunate enough to upset Forza, and then we had a decent opportunity to upset North as well, but wasn't to be. So that kind of was I would argue that was kind of an inflection point for us. We went from being, a team where people didn't even consider us, relevant, to a team who, we skyrocketed up into the rankings into the top 40, and we went from, not receiving any invites to events or even qualifiers to being inundated with invites. So we started out fairly. I would say, there was a lot of pressure on the guys at the start because when you don't play on HLTV regularly, you're kind of under you're under pressure to perform immediately because you have a smaller sample size of games, and if you don't perform immediately on HLTV once you arrive on HLTV as a team, then it's difficult to consistently get invites. So once we had the upset at Anaheim, and we our ranking skyrocketed inside the top 40, it meant that we just immediately started getting invites to all the Malta Vibes, all the like 9 to 5, like Home Sweet Home Cups. Then we started grinding ranking in that, and then we started getting invites into closed qualifiers, and then obviously we qualified for Dreamhack again there recently. So it is kind of just there are you obviously it's a grind over a long period as a team, but there are inflection points throughout that, and Anaheim was obviously one of them, and hopefully we'll have a few more down the line. Yeah, probably, and then some, I would say, because originally we set goals for ourselves to just simply qualify for MDL, retain a spot in MDL, and try and compete around a level with the teams who were at the time just regularly playing on HLTV. So teams, like the likes of Skate and stuff, who were on HLTV like us kind of regularly, but you just wanted to kind of make sure that we were competing, make sure that we were having obviously there's competing and winning, are two different things. It's like, putting in decent performances so that you retain invites. It was the initial important thing for us to do. And then, winning came kind of relatively quickly to us. So we were quite fortunate. We were always, I think we like in the Home Sweet Home Cups, we didn't have a single tournament where we didn't make it out of the group stage. So things kind of happened very quickly for us. So we definitely exceeded expectation as a team, and I think we exceeded most people's expectations externally as well. So we just set out very simple targets for ourselves of qualifying for MDL and competing, and then everything from there has been kind of for the last season, the season that just went, everything from there has kind of just been icing on the cake. So we obviously have different goals for the new season, different, there's a lot of differences between last season and this one. There's always been like a wealth of okay players, players that can play, I would say, on HLTV and play in these kind of cups and stuff. But there's never been really, an opportunity to put 3 UK players together that were of the level of Kaya, Max, and Cyril is Kaya, so Cyril, Max, and Thomas. So we're very fortunate to have that UK core and to have some of the better UK players possible, if not some of the best. So that, I think that the infrastructure wasn't there to do it, and ENDPOINT gave us a platform to do it. So, we were able to put together a team with the right funding and the right backing and infrastructure, and then that gave me a platform to, kind of indoctrinate them into a culture that would work for the 5 players that we had. So I think historically the issue is, there's always been this kind of thing of people complaining that there wasn't funds, or there wasn't, the right backing, or, sometimes the things just need to come together at the right time. right place, and that's kind of what happened with this team. I think that with the guys just decided to play the WESGA qualifier together. Thomas, Joey, and Kaya had always planned to play together, but then Max asked them to play the WESGA qualifier, and they just qualified for WESGA out of the blue, and that kind of was the inception of the team. So it was a matter. Eventually, you're going to get the right guys together, and then you just need the right org behind them, and then Endpoint provided that. So this team has kind of it's been quite fortunate that it's happened, but historically I think that I don't think the players probably were capable of competing at this level this consistently, and if the players were there, they've like Samuya, Mantu, Alex, Def, they just get brought further afield because there was no organization who could actually fund a team at that level, whereas in Endpoint can now, and have been able to retain the team for the last 8 months. UK Prem has always been has been good for UKCS. Without it wouldn't be much. But I think that what I would like to see is just more. I don't know. It's kind of more integration throughout within Europe. Like as in, I love seeing UK players or Irish players playing abroad and playing with teams that people wouldn't expect them to play with, or groups of players. Like I think as a UK player just signed with Real Betis. I think that's going away and then maybe coming back together. Like, Thomas went away to No Chance. Kaya and Joey were away in Epsilon. Kaya was in Complexity. Joey was in Splice, and they came back together and made it work as a three, very well experienced players. So I think going abroad and getting experience, or just taking it doesn't need there's great opportunities throughout Europe. If you're good enough, it doesn't matter if there's infrastructure within the UK or not. Like, it's the onus isn't on UK organizations or ESL Prem to put together events that makes UK players want to play or gives them a platform to play. If you're good enough, all that's irrelevant. It doesn't matter if you're the biggest asshole in the world. It doesn't matter if you're if you're a very difficult person to work with. If you're good enough, you'll find a team to play with no matter what. So it's about just finding a basin of talent. Like, no matter where Kaya, or Thomas have ever been, they've been fully professional contracted players because they're such gifted players, and everyone sees that. So that's just the way it is. Like, if the bigger the pool of players the UK has, whatever 0.01% of those players are going to be top players, and they're going to find somewhere to play. That's just the way it is, So bigger pool of players is the answer, I suppose. I think there's probably obviously I think it's clear for everyone to see that even last season there was quite a gulf between our team and the rest of the league. Like, I don't think that there's a scenario where this season that we don't expect to go completely undefeated throughout the season, but I also don't think that there's a scenario where we don't win. But I don't think that having a top heavy scene is that bad of a thing. Like, it works for Bayern in Germany in the sense that they smaller organizations or smaller teams will feed into the bigger team, and then you have a team that can compete on the world stage and be a powerhouse there, as opposed to diluting the talent amongst a large group of teams. But that said, then the ESL Prem suffers probably because of lack of competition. So but I could sit here and complain and say lack of competition is bad, but there are positive elements to it too, in the sense that there's an organization, because we're so dominant and top heavy in the scene. There's a team there where players can consider, if they come out and show that they're talented, we always want to, there's always going to be a possibility for a change in our team, where if there's someone gifted enough that they can come in and improve the team, and then there's a platform there for those guys to be spotted by us and play CS full-time professionally. So I think, another team, another organization who can come in and maybe do that would be nice, so that we have, like last season, Vex pushed us to the wire at times and gave us good games, even though probably the experience of our players kind of shone through. Losing them is kind of a loss to the scene. I think that they were a good team, and then they that they kind of fell short at the last hurdle in qualifying for MDL. So they're losing that bunch of players to Valorant, that's been great for them. It's probably been bad for UKCS, but if it meant that they can now play an esport full time professionally where they couldn't have in CS, more power to them, and you can't blame them for that. And we'll just have to look towards the crop of players that are in Prem now, I suppose. Yeah, no, it's always it's when you're ever bringing in a new player, it's very hard to it's extremely difficult to quantify at times what players do for teams. So you can say it's going to be easy or difficult to replace them, but you don't really fully grasp the concept of what a player does for a team. So say for example of Thomas, there's so many small things that he would have done that we can't even quantify or gauge how important those were over the grand scheme of, say, the last 200 games that we played on HLTV in the last 8 months. So though it just creates uncertainty, and uncertainty can, you can reap the rewards of having someone that comes in and transforms the team and improves them in ways we couldn't have even imagined, or you can bring someone in and they just don't fill the role. So it'll be for us, it's just only time will tell. It's very hard to gauge. Hopefully everything works out best for all parties involved, and that's what we aim to achieve. Hopefully hopefully it works out as a great move for Thomas, and everything works out fantastically for him, and hopefully it works out for us as well. It's just the nature of the game. It's the nature of Counter-Strike. It's players move on. People part company. And you try to make it as amicable as possible. And I think we have in this scenario. And we just have to hope that we fare just as well. Just have really good players. That's the secret. I don't know. I think I'm very close to quite a few coaches, and I think a lot of people have different kind of different approaches to what they think the role should be. Kind of, there's people who are very tactical prone, and very strategic, focus very much on the strategic side of the game. There's people who focus more so on the mental side of the game. Each to their own kind of. I think it works differently with different players. There's more importance for different teams, as in some teams struggle with the emotional and the mental aspects of the game more than others, and some teams struggle with the strategic and tactical side of the game. So, I historically have always been heavy leaning towards the strategy and tactics of the game, but in the last, since joining Endpoint, really, since taking a sabbatical from coaching and working in finance and kind of finding how important it is to have a good culture in a company. The same principles apply for NCS. If you don't have a healthy culture, or environment where people can come to work every day and feel like it's enjoyable, and that you don't have to you never have to ask people to stay late. You never have to ask people why are they late, because they want to be there, because it's enjoyable, because you enjoy the day that's in it, and it's not just labor. It's not a labor intensive experience. So for me, for this team anyway, for the first 8 months, or the last 8 months, it massively has been about just trying to get the guys indoctrinated into the idea that a lot of the concepts I've brought are kind of from the finance background, and what it's like to work in a fund, and we try to work under kind of a mantra of like radical what is radical transparency and radical honesty, where everyone can speak openly with each other regardless of, and without fear of any sort of retribution. If their opinion is perceived to be stupid, nobody will come down and lambast them, and or just being honest with them that someone has an issue with someone, and let's speak openly about it and make sure that people feel comfortable in doing that. So that's where I think it's important to break ground on these aspects of the game first, because I think that has been probably one of the bigger stumbling blocks in UKCS historically, has been teams being very tactically astute and focusing on that side of the game without understanding that the importance of having a working atmosphere that works for everyone in the team and isn't just suitable for the in-game leader and coach. It's you need to be able to allow players to speak their mind and speak freely and feel like they're part of every element of the team, and not just either part of playing or part of providing strategy, or part of organizing games. It's there's more to the game than simply sitting on the server and going through strategy and tactics. So like that, and I think that it's a testament to the team and the performances that we've put in, is our mental resilience due to the culture, the healthy culture that we have. When we started 8 months ago, it was a difficult environment to be in. I would say not bad, but it was difficult, I would say, at times. Whereas in the last 3 or 4 months, I think you can see some of the results where we've been absolutely down and out and completely written off in games and come back to win them. I don't know how many times, I can't even count how many times we've come back from absolutely unbelievable deficits to come back and win games, and that's purely down to mental resilience, because nobody's ever standing on each other's throat over issues. People make the biggest blunders you could imagine, horrific mistakes in games, and nobody will come down on them. Nobody will even, bring it up. We won't even discuss it in the next round. We'll move on. We've lost 1v3s, 1v4s, 1v5s at times, and we just sit quietly on TeamSpeak and realize that, okay, well, that was we all know that was a horrific round to lose, and it might result in us losing the game, but what relevance does it have to the game going forward? What relevance does it have to the next round of the round after? So there's a like you could sit here and talk for hours on about all the things about what you can do to adapt and change, a culture within a team to make sure that it works for everyone. But what I would say is, from my perspective, I think, if you're wanting to be a coach, lean heavily towards understanding people, as opposed to just understanding the strategy in the game, because anyone can sit down and review demos and bring new strategy and make clips of demos, but you need to be quite astute at understanding people in order to be able to deal with the really difficult conversations that can arise in team environments where players or younger people might not be comfortable in having these discussions, and you just need to be the person who can facilitate them, or or even just be the one who brings the issues to a head. But we that said, we work under the guise of essentially what is an idea meritocracy, where everyone can speak openly and bring their own beliefs and ideas to whatever it is we do, without any sort of fear of criticism, without any sort of, for the player we're trying to now is 17 years of age, and he can come in and he can bring whatever he wants to, and not feel like, because these guys have been playing the game for longer than me, that he can't speak openly about how he feels. So culture is everything in any team. You look at any sporting team that's successful, it's the culture that's the driving force behind that, not the analytics and strategy. They play a huge role as well, but without a healthy culture to be able to survive heavy defeats and heavy losses, and bad bouts of form, understand what the difference between form and what a full season and what that means. All these things have huge downstream effects on a team. So yeah, that's a bit of a long-winded explanation.